Chapter 7. Escape. When he came to, his head was splitting. It was still dark, and the moon had gone, leaving in its place a queer broken glimmer high over his head. He tried to sit up, but fell back weakly, too sick to be able to think. Later, he felt better, and paid more heed to his surroundings. With faint surprise, he found that he was no longer on the path outside the house. Chains were riveted to his arms and legs, and he lay in a deep earthen pit with wet sawdust all around him. In one place, where his movements had swept the floor bare, his hand fell on a sheet of cold smoothness that stung his palm. Quickly, he drew it away. He guessed now where he was. They had thrown him into the ice pit. Every winter, at most great mansions in the colony, blocks of ice were stored deep in such cellars, packed in sawdust to keep them from melting. The ice lasted well into the warm weather, if buried properly. But what were the chains? Why was he manacled? Guy yelled suddenly, in a cracked voice that bounced off the sides of the pit. Nobody answered. He tried again. This time a wooden flap was flung open with a clatter. Far above, ink black against the blue dazzling square of sky, a head and shoulders outlined themselves sharply. "What you want?" rasped an unfriendly voice. "I got a good mind to come down there and give you summat to make a song about, hooting and bawling." It was an assistant overseer, one of Bully Joel's underlings. "Why am I here?" Guy asked. "What has happened?" "You know what's happened well enough, you murdering young varmint," was the gruff retort. "The Master robbed and Master Lee's done to death, that's what. It won't be long afore your mates join you down there, so you needn't fret about being lonesome." "My mates?" For a moment Guy thought he meant Alistair and Riach, but the next words relieved him. "Your Magsman pals, Exon and t'other pair. The hounds are out tracking 'em now, and when they're copped, the lot of you'll be scragged, like you ought to have been in the first place. So chew on that, cully." Guy was aghast. So Joel was dead. He shuddered, seeing once more in memory the evil flash of Smeaton's blade in the moonlight. Now he guessed what had happened. When the alarm was given, they must have found him lying on the path, by Joel Lees and the dog. No doubt they thought Guy was one of the gang, who had been knocked down by the overseer before he was murdered, and they had treated him accordingly. Overhead the flaps slammed shut, and he sank down in a fit of misery. Was anyone ever so unlucky as he wondered. This was the second calamity he had brought on himself simply through not minding his own affairs. Would he never learn? On the heels of that thought came the grim knowledge that, after this, he would never have the chance. His jailer's words were no more than the truth. It could only end in the rope. Guy could see no alternative. Even if Exon and the others were caught, there was no reason to suppose that they would trouble to speak up for him. They did not like him anyhow, and if they got clear, there would be only his own tale to set against the evidence, which did not favour him. People would say he had been in the plot to rob the house, and had merely been unlucky in not escaping with the others. Time wore on. It moved slowly, spinning out the minutes at incredible length. It seemed years to Guy before the chinks in the wooden cover dimmed, and it was twilight. He was faint and thirsty. No food or water had been given him. He sucked a chip of ice to soothe his parched mouth, and tried to work out a way to save himself. Later he heard a din of hammer strokes on metal, ring loud across the plantation, the signal for the day's work to end. A hanging ploughshare was beaten like a gong every evening to call the hands from the fields. The sentry above him was changed soon afterwards, for he listened to his guard chatting to the man who relieved him. After that, silence hung over his prison for a long time. It grew cold in the pit, and he shivered ceaselessly. It was full night when he caught the slight noise above him. At first he thought it was the new sentry fidgeting. He wondered what had got into him, for by the sounds the fellow made, he seemed to be rolling on the ground and gasping like a lunatic. Then, to his spellbound amazement, the flap opened stealthily. Guy stared upward. All at once he was tense and breathless. He did not know why. Now the framed patch of sky was rich purple, blazing thick with stars. While he looked, it was blotted out. "Guy!" the whisper floated down to him, urgent and guarded. "Guy! Can you hear, lad?" "Alistair?" His heart jumped in mad hope, pounding furiously in his chest, so that it almost blocked his voice. His luck had not left him completely. At least he still had friends. "Hold your wisht," said Alistair. "I'm coming down." Another shape joined Alistair against the sky. Riach was there too. A rope flopped down to dangle in the hole, swinging gently. Nimbly Alistair climbed through the opening. The Highlander moved like an acrobat, gliding down the rope with supple, easy actions of his arms. Ribs tight with the excitement that filled him, Guy clambered to his feet and nearly tripped over his fetters. "Take care," he warned. "You'll be in as sour a pickle as I am if they catch you." Alistair grunted. "They'll not take us if we're fast and careful. Hold you still. You cannot climb with half a ton of iron decked about you, the way you are." Taking a hammer and a spike from his shirt, Alistair whipped the garment off and muffled Guy's chains with it carefully. It deadened the sound while he neatly punched out the rivets which held the metal cuffs around wrist and ankle. Considering that he had to do it in the dark, it was no mean performance. "What next?" Guy demanded. "There'll be the dickens to pay, and no ha'pence when they find I'm gone." "It is you or the lad who wanted to run away. Get up yon rope and save your breath for running. We have but little time." Scrambling out of the pit into the clean night air, Guy tumbled into the grasp of Riach. For the moment he was daft with joy and pounded the little redhead gleefully on the back. With a high-pitched chuckle, Riach threw him off. "You were better moving your lung shanks than havering here like a loon," he scolded in a whimper. "Let's away from here." Guy felt a rag bundle thrust into his hands. "What's this?" "A wheen victuals," Alistair told him. "This is your share. Keep it well, for 'tis all you are like to get in a long while. There is a knife too. Now come, we have tarried over late already." They passed the sentry, a house servant, bound and gagged by the mouth of the ice cellar. The two Scots had made a thorough job of tying him, for the poor wretch was trussed like a chicken for roasting. In the starlight, Guy saw his eyes bulge wide with fear. No doubt he was terrified, in case they gave him the same dreadful medicine that unlucky Joel Lees got. But they left him sprawled there, and headed westward into the dark. For the first time Guy began to understand why the Highlanders were such expert raiders. Their feet made no sound, and they had a natural sense of cover, never showing themselves in any place where there was the least growth of bush or grass to shelter them. Their gait, too, almost founded him. Even after long captivity their lean limbs held a tireless endurance, and they ran like dogs, with a long swinging trot that never slackened. Guy thought he could run. Certainly he could have beaten either of them with ease over any distance up to half a mile, but the unwearied persistence of their smart jog had him gasping within an hour. It was a cruel journey. In the pitchy blackness of the wood, or in the bright starlight, they never faltered. The Scots had eyes like cats, avoiding obstacles with uncanny skill, but Guy blundered into things and stumbled repeatedly. Several times he fell, though luckily without harm. By midnight his lungs pumped in sobs of utter exhaustion. Yet aware that they must not let themselves be caught, whatever happened, he made himself keep up to their killing pace. The country was wild and tangled, overgrown with brush and matted patches of vine. So far as they could, they avoided the main trails and any place that seemed to be inhabited. Repeatedly they plunged into streams and waded up their beds for long stretches. The running water carried no scent and would throw off the bloodhounds which the pursuers would bring to track them. By dawn they had come 20 miles or more, and even Alistair and Riach were flagging. When a grey pearly sheen grew on the eastern sky, Alistair spoke. "We'll travel no farther until sundown. Until then we will hide and rest." "Thank goodness for that," Guy panted, "for I can go no more, not even if the hounds were but a yard behind." They came upon a thicket of canes, and wormed their way into its tangled depths, before sinking down to get their wind. Guy's chest flogged with the strain, and every breath was a fiery dagger in his lungs. "I thought I was a runner," he exclaimed, when his heart had stopped pounding so heavily. "But you two have shown me I'm no great hand at it. I could not have kept up if you had not encouraged me." "You did just fine, laddie," Alistair smiled. "For all that, you would be in poor case just now to race against Sir Willoughby's tame Indian, I'm thinking. We have come a good way from home. Do you think they'll catch us now?" "We're not clear yet. It will be a day or two before we win clear of the settlements." MacLeod took a small loaf, called a Johnny cake, out of his bundle. He broke off a fragment and chewed it slowly. "Until then we must play the night owl, and flit only in the dark." Briefly Alistair told him what had happened back at the plantation. As Guy had surmised, he had been found lying on the path by the house, with the bodies of Joel and the dog. Mr. Holly had at once ordered him to be imprisoned, thinking that he was one of the robbers, and had raised a party to chase Exon and his accomplices. "They got the gold then?" Guy's voice trembled slightly. Did they harm anybody else?" Alistair shook his head. "No, but let us keek at that bruise on your skull, boy. 'Twas a shrewd dunt yon rascals gave you." Seth Gill's blow had been shrewd and vicious. Only the fact that Guy was already ducking had saved his head from being broken. For the first time he began to realise that his sick weariness arose partly from the injury. Riach peered through the canes, sprawled at their edge, while Alistair tended Guy's wound. Presently the little man hissed over his shoulder. "They are coming down the burn yonder. Look there." In a flash the other two were by his side. Riach pointed to a stream that ran down a little valley, about half a mile away. Rolling meadows lay on each side of it. On the near bank a group of horsemen rode slowly through the tall, feathery grass. "They cannot have traced us so far already." Alistair was shocked. His bearded jaw came forward grimly, and a quick fire gleamed in his dark pupils. "Well, if they find us, we will give them a welcome. Alistair Mahor MacLeod has done with being a slave." Riach grinned savagely. Something glinted in his fist, wicked and deft and quick, as if a dragonfly had darted into his fingers. It was his scheme d'eau, which he had kept hidden since his capture. The little dirk which had stabbed Gil during the brawl in the convict ship. The knife glittered balefully in the new daylight. Like Alistair, Guy could not believe their pursuers had caught up with them so soon. Even if the alarm had been given at once, it seemed incredible that they could have been followed so closely. Then he saw that the riders were moving downstream towards the coast, and the true explanation hit him in a thunderclap of relief. "They're not after us," he whispered. "They're going the wrong way, back towards the house. It's one of the parties that went after Exon and his crew on their way home." "You have hit it, Guy," Alistair murmured, relaxing. "I see Mr. Holly leading them on his bay horse. We are safe for now at any rate, if we have luck." They have not got any of Exon's gang, Guy mused. It looks as though they lost the trail. Let us hope they have no better fortune with ours. They watched the horsemen from the canebrake until they vanished. When they had gone, Alistair said, "Sleep now, my friends. You will need all your strength for tonight." But Guy was snoring already, and did not hear him.